simple time signature. Okay, so like I said, I'm not going through everything from start to finish. You have the specific lessons that have already been documented on the video, which you can refer back to. But basically, it's some basic principles that I just want you to know, because you remember in grade one, if you remember, you dealt with some time signature that are like fours, you know. You have like 4, things like that, quadruple. But the only difference here, if you think about it, is in this case now, you are dealing with key signatures where you have not just things like 4 or so, but where you have things like 3 2 2 2, and then where you have things like 3 8. Okay, so the difference is this now. So what does this tell you? The numbers at the bottom, at the down, but when you have a key signature, let's say for example you have 3 8. What does this tell you? What's this and what's this?
The denominator is like the kind of time signature, like if it is gonna be like this one that is quavers.
So what does it tell you? Yes, quiver, but what can you?
It has to be 3 quavers on each bar.
3 quiver what, Naomi?
I was going to say what it represents.
What does it represent?
Does it represent the null value per beat?
The what?
The bottom, does it represent the null value per beat?
It represents the beat, not just the note value, because it can be rest.
Okay.
All right? It represents the beats, and this tells you the number of beats. Okay, so that's simple. So remember in your first grade 1, we looked at, most of the beats we looked at were 4 crochet beats. You know, most of the beats we looked at 4 4, 2 4, 3 4. But now we are extending it to look at other beats, because it's not only crochet beats that you have. You have, this is what? Meaning beats. And this is what? Quiver beats. All right? So you could see that there are other beats apart from. It's the same interpretation. You know, it's the same thing, you know. Just think about it from the aspect of how many, this is a time signature, it tells me how many beats that you have in a single bar. Okay? I think that is pretty much straightforward. The other thing that I may just want to talk about is, so when you see this now, okay, the one on top here now tells you triple, so it means 3 beats, am I right? This one is duple, right? 2 beats, right? This one is duple. And then this one, if it is like 4 2, then this one is what? Quadruple. So this is just the number of beats. Whether it's duple, triple, or quadruple, it's the number of beats. The beat itself, what's the name of the beat? The beat itself is what you find out. In grade 1, you did lots of crochet beats, but now you'll be touching meaning beats and quiver beats. So that means that as you go along the other topics, you'll be seeing quiver notes, quiver beats, meaning beats. So it's not only crochet beats you'll be seeing. So they're now introducing you to more types of beats. All right. So that's all we have for simple time signature. Does anyone have any question before we look at look at the question you did here and see what is? Does anyone have any question? Okay. So let's look at this and see what question is about reading. What question is about reading? You can share, from what you did, you can share with us so that I can use this. So if you look at the first one, it tells you circle the correct time signature. All right, so it means that you could have, so let me grab off this and just, so what they may give you in the exam is, they will, just like you have in your sample exam question, is that they may give you things like, they may just draw a stave for you. They may draw some stave for you. Okay? And, you know, just tell you, okay, you have this stave. And then they may give you, like what you have here, you know, let's say this is this, color this. Like this. I'll just use the first example that they give here. First. Okay? So, let's assume you have this. Sorry. Let's just do this, get this sorted out. So let's assume you have this, okay? And then you have this joined into this. So you have this now, and they tell you, okay, this is what you have. This is kind of a question you might see. What is the time signature for this?
3/8.
3/8. Why do you say it's 3/8?
Because we have 4 semi-quavers and 1 quiver, which makes it 3 quavers.
Okay, so 1 quiver, 2 quavers, right? 3 quavers. So automatically it is what? 3/8. That means it's 3 quiver beats in this bar. Remember, they can also add rests to them. So it must not be, so when you are counting this, please take note, if there are rests, you must account for the rests as well. Does that make sense? Good. Okay. You could also be asked, for example, you may be given something like this. Okay, let's extend it a bit. All right. Maybe given something like this. Okay, all right. And then you'll be, you know, let's say this is, and then you'll be told, let's say for example, you are told that this is 3/2, 3/2, right? And then you'll be given, you know, this is dotted, this is a crochet, right? And this is this, and this is this, and this is just assume we have this like this. Okay, and this is this, and this is this. So just assume that. Now you are giving these times, you have a time signature here already. And then I ask you, okay, put a bar line there. So that, put the missing bar line. So where do you think the missing bar line will be?
It's after the, second.
Yeah? This is the missing balance. So when you put the missing balance, you have to check that both notes balances, both sides. So already this is, it means we must have 3 meaning beats, okay? So this is 1.5 meaning beats. This is half, this is 1, so it's 3, right? And this is 1. Everything here is what? Sorry, I made a mistake. This is supposed to be this, yeah. So everything here is what? Is 1. And then these 2 crochets 1, so it's 3. So you're correct. So these are different ways they could ask you in terms of your rhythm. The other thing is, you could be asked how many quavers do you have in a this, in a crochet or things like that. You know, it could move around. So please be very comfortable with kind of answering those types of questions. Those are common rhythm questions that you would kind of find in a standard question. So let me see, what did you write in the first one at 1.3 now? They said how many semiquavers are there in a dotted crochet?
I put 6.
Is that correct?
No.
How many crochets are there in a semi-breve? Huh? 4. All right. Okay. All right. So let's now move on to another thing. So we're talking about grouping of notes. So I'm going to spend some time here because this is normally where some students get stuck, all right, in grouping of notes. Okay, so what do we, number one, you have to understand that the same principles you are taught in your grade 1 still applies even now, okay? So grouping of notes is quite, the first thing you have to understand in your grouping of notes, number one, is avoid ties as much as possible. Avoid ties if possible, all right? If you can make do with dotted notes, use dotted notes instead of ties. If it makes sense to use dotted notes, please use dotted notes instead of ties. The second thing, which is when you have, you can beam semiquavers together. All right? You can beam semiquavers together for a complete bar. For a complete bar. All right? For a complete bar in 3/8. In 3/8. Okay? So when you have 3/8, it means, sorry, you know 3/8 is 3 quavers, all right? 3 quiver beats in a bar, all right? So you have 3 quavers beats. So, but let's assume instead of in a bar, instead of 3 quavers beats, let's assume you have 6 semiquavers. Everything is semiquavers, okay? So you have, let's do this, do this, right? Okay, so these are semiquavers. Let's assume if you put the 2 hooks there, so you can do this in a 3/8 time. So you can group all the semiquavers because this already forms. This is everything you have in a bar because it's 3/8, all right? So you could group the whole stuff in a bar. Also, when you have time signature, if you have a meaning beat time signature, I will explain what that means. For meaning beat time signature, beam semiquavers together that makes a meaning to make a meaning. Oh, yeah. So now what does this mean? What this means is very simple. It means that, okay, if you have time signature where, if you have a time signature where the beat is a meaning, in this case the beat is a quiver. So give me an example of a time signature where the beat is a meaning. Good. So 3-2, for example. All right. You have 3 meaning beats. Okay. For 1 meaning beat, how many semiquavers would you have? How many semiquavers make 1 meaning?
4.
Semiquavers.
Make 1 meaning.
Yes. How many? 8. So you can beam those 8 semiquavers together. All right. You can beam those 8 semiquavers together to make 1 meaning. So how many semiquavers would have made 2 meanings? Because now we have 16. Okay, let's assume 16 am I right? So you can't beam 16. So you have to beam them meaning by meaning. So if you want to beam, let's say you have 3-2 and all the notes on that 3-2, they are all semiquavers. Let's assume all of them are semiquavers. So you are going to have, how are you going to beam them in groups of 8, all right? Because so that each beam must form a meaning, because that's the beat. All right? Each beam must form it. So 3 meaning, 8 semiquavers, 8 semiquavers, 8 semiquavers. That's for that. Okay. Please understand that this is for meaning beats. For meaning beats, you can do that. But for crochet beats, remember what we did in grade 1. For crochet beats, why can't you group? For crochet beats, you cannot group. You cannot. So let's say you have 4-4, for example. Let's assume you have 4-4. All right? How many semiquavers will you get in 1 crochet? No? Will you get 1 crochet? 4. 4.
Okay, then it has to.
4 semiquavers make 1 crochet. All right. Yeah. So it means you can only group in 4s, not in 8, because the beat here is 4. You understand? So you only group that those 8 something is for meaning, not for crochet. Crochet will be in 4s, so that you can distinguish the beats, because each group must form the beats. That's the idea there. And remember, if it has rest, you have to also include the rest in the beaming. So what that means, for example, is let's say you have something like this. So remember, I want to beam this. So let's say you have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so you will beam across, okay? Do you see? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, you are counting, you're beaming, so you are beaming across the notes, but you still have to account for the rest. So you can't say, oh, there are only 6 crochets, 6 semiquavers notes, so I can't beam them, they have to be 8. No, because already you have 2 semiquaver what? Rest in between. Even if this was a quaver, of course, even if this was just a quaver, as long as it is still going in between what completes the 8 semiquaver, then you have to still beam them. Remember, your beam can be up or down. Why am I beaming down here? Because the tails are, if the tails are up, you beam across, okay? So simple. Any question about that? Any question? Okay? So we now go to the next one, which is grouping of rests. Now, this is grouping of notes. Very easy. You could just think about it from making sure that apart from 3/8, where you can group, just, you don't need to. So 3/8, you don't need to say, I want to only group 2 so that it forms a, you can't say, you don't say, in 3/8, you don't say, I want to group 2 semiquavers because the note, the beat is quaver. You don't use that, you can beam everything. But apart from that, minims and crochet, you have to beam according to the beats. Okay, so now let's go to grouping of rest. Grouping of rests. Grouping of rests. Grouping of rest. Now, the principle you use for rest is different. What am I talking about? If you want to use, normally the way you use rest to depict silence, right? We are not too simple. So what type of rest should you put in a place depends on what the rest is to do there. If the rest is to complete a note, there's a way to represent it. If it is to begin a bar, there is a way to, so you have to kind of, so when they say, oh, use rest to complete this bar, don't just say, oh, it's a quiver rest, or it's a crochet rest, you just carry crochet rest. What is it? Yeah, I know it's crochet rest, but is it supposed to be just one crochet or two quivers rest? Okay? You're still going to make one crochet beat at the end of the day, but what, is it just going to be one crochet rest or two, what? Quiver rest. So that's the, so don't just say, oh, I know the answer, you just pick it. No, you have to be very, it's very tricky. Now, of course, you know semi-brief rest. A complete bar is semi-brief rest, right? You know that, so that's taken. So where I'm going to start from is, so in you must, so number one, use rests to complete, so use rest to use rest to complete a beat. Let me put it that way. Use rest to do what? Complete a beat. It's very important. I'll just give you one example. Just give you one example. So, for example, you have 4/4. It can be anything. The beat here is crochet. Am I right? 4/4. But so let's assume you have this, and then you have this. And then the question says, use rest to complete this so that it tallies. Of course, you know, okay, these are already 2 crochets. How many crochet beats do I need more to complete this? 2. So what rest should be here? What rest should be here?
2 crochet rest.
A minim rest. A minim rest. A minim beat. All right? A minim beat.
Okay. I was thinking, I don't know, I was thinking they say if there's no meaning there.
No, first of all, identify what beat should be there to complete it.
Yeah.
You need a minim beat to complete it. Then the question you need to ask yourself is, should I use a minim rest or something smaller than a minim rest to complete it? That's the question you need there. So now, if you cannot put a minim rest here. Do you know why? Why?
Because it's messing up like there's no division between the 1, 2, 3.
Brilliant. I only know 1, so where is 2, where is 3? And then I know 4. So that's why every beat must try to be represented. So in that case, what I need to do is to remove this and, like you said, get my crochet rest and my crochet rest. So it's still minim, all right, at the end of the day. So, but you see, this is now 1 beat, 2 beats. So if I'm doing my counting, I can still count 1, 2, 3, 4, because it's there. You must ensure that you complete your beat. And even if it is, so let's assume this is, for example, this is 4/8, all right? This is 4 quiver beats. So you have this. So you already have 2 quiver beats. So you need 2 quiver beats more, which is a crochet. You can't just put a crochet here. All right? you have to put a quiver and a quiver, a quiver and a quiver, all right? So that you can count one quiver, two quiver, three quiver, four. So it's the same whether it's at the beginning. So you just have to think about that I need to complete the note. So that's one aspect of something you must, I want you to get, all right? Okay. Now, another thing is, number 2 is use as few rests as possible. Use as few rests as possible. Now, I don't mean this because this is 2 rests now. Okay, use as few rests as possible. Let's change this one to, it's not possible here, all right? So we can't do it here. But where possible, use as few rests as possible. What does that mean? For example, if you have 2/4, all right? That is 2 crochet beads in a bar. So let's assume I have nothing here, and then you have a crochet here, and you are asked to complete this with a rest. What rest will be here? What rest will be here? Crochet already, because it's 2 crochet and you have only 1 crochet, so you need another crochet. Okay? But please don't go and put quiver, because number 1, yes, it may make a bit, but why don't you use something less, especially when it makes sense? Because now even quiver is not a beat. So why are you using quiver? Why don't you use, since crochet makes sense and crochet is the beat and crochet is even less, so just use crochet. So we change this and we put our crochet, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, so that's one thing. So use as much few rest as possible as you can. Okay, so number 3, let me clean up this so that can I clean up this? Okay, so that I don't know. Okay, so number 3 is rests complete a beat before commencing another rest. I will explain. Just maybe that's not the best way I should have put it, but just maybe when I explain, you will tend to understand. Okay? So let's assume I have 4/4. Let's assume I have 4/4 and so let's say 4/4. Okay, let me see what I can use. Okay, so let's say this is the note. I have this. Okay, then I have this. All right. Then I say, okay, complete the others with rest.
2 crochets.
This is 4/4, so already we have just 1 crochet and 1 minim. So complete the others with rests.
Okay.
So tell me, what would the rest be?
Has to be 1 quiver first.
Mm-hmm.
Quiver is then. can't put crochet after that because crochet is behind the. We can't put crochet rest because crochet is behind the quiver, right? So it has to be 5 quiver rest.
5 quiver rests. Remember, I said use as few rests as possible. That will make sense. Okay, so what I talked about here, rest has to complete a beat before commencing another rest. Now, what's the beat here? Always look at the beat. What's the beat? This is the beat, right? This is 1 complete, okay? This is half, not complete yet. So what does it need to be complete? So I'll put my quiver rest there. Right? So this is now complete as another one. Then I can now start a new rest.
Okay, that has to be crochet.
Then, so it has to be crochet rest, which is 1, crochet rest, which is 1. But also because this is 4/4, and remember in 4/4, when you did your grouping and your resting, you can group the 2 rests at the beginning or the 2 rests at the end together, but you cannot do it at the middle. So we can change this and just change it to a mini rest because it's just 3rd and 4th. Remember, I want to use as fewer rests as possible. So you just have this and this. So what I just only showed here is that if you have a note that is incomplete, you have to use a rest to complete that note first before starting a new rest beat.
Okay. Do you think if we use a mini rest, that is kind of affecting the idea that you don't use mini rest where there is no minimum?
No, you can use a minimum rest. For 4/4, you can use a minimum rest. Okay? It's the same principle. The principle is simply that there has to be, within the middle, especially in the middle beat, there should be distinction. Once the 3rd and the 4th beat, there should be distinction. Towards the end, you can mesh the rest together.
Okay.
You understand? You can mesh the rest together. So towards the beginning, to 1st and 2nd, if they are just crochet, and it's okay like that, you can mesh it together. Mesh them together, rather. Okay, so that's I think, so that's everything I think I want to talk about in terms of grouping of rest and grouping of notes. So please note that when you are giving, just to reiterate, number 1, you have to use less, avoid, what did I say you avoid? Much. Try to use as fewer rests as possible. But also ensure that in using your rest, what was the first thing I said? You have to make sure that use your rest that synchronizes with your beats. Okay, so you have use a rest, don't just use join 2 rests, especially you make sure that, especially at the middle part, in the middle side part, you use rest that coincides with your beat and your counting. 4/4 is an exception. 4/4 is an exception because you can group 2 rests at the end of a 4/4 or at the beginning of a 4/4, though not between the 3rd and the 4th note. But in other time signatures like 3/4, 3/8, it doesn't matter whether it's the rest at the beginning or the end. Try as much as let it coincide with. Let it coincide with the notes, with the rest beat value. Does that make sense?